Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to have been asked to address the Economist World Forest Summit, as the questions you will consider are clearly wide-ranging, timely, and could not be more important. I only wish, however, that I could be with you in person as well as in spirit. Now, you certainly don't need me to emphasize just how vitally important the world's forests are to the well-being of people everywhere, as well as, of course, to the indigenous and other communities who rely on them directly. Forests, as we know, help to sustain the freshwater cycle, they capture and store carbon, and they are a repository for most of the Earth's terrestrial biodiversity. But the trouble is that these crucial processes are often forgotten or neglected. We tend to see forest resources in terms of their immediate market value, and in doing so, fail to recognize the wider benefits they provide. It seems to me that this failure to measure and properly appreciate forests' vital non-market values is very much at the heart of the problem. So I trust that this is the kind of fertile territory you might address at a meeting hosted by such a publication as The Economist. Put simply, and whether we like it or not, forests matter deeply. In fact, we would be doomed without them. I worry, though, that their central importance to global economic development is not clearly articulated. Their healthy functioning is absolutely critical to the issues of food, energy, and water security, not just in tropical countries, but globally. So their loss is not simply a curious statistic to be included on the debit side of the balance sheet of the Earth's natural capital. Their loss has an increasingly devastating impact on macroeconomic stability and human health, particularly through the destruction of the intricate web of biodiversity on which we depend for our survival. But what can we do to ensure that the forests are sustained? Peter Holmgren, the Director General of the Center for International Forestry Research, will address you tomorrow on the role of forests in the context of sustainable and resilient landscapes. Now, as you might expect, I am very sympathetic to this approach, which seeks ways of shaping agricultural landscapes so that they are beneficial to people and to the rural economy, sensitive to the topography and history of the region's natural environment, and beneficial to biodiversity, agriculture, to food security, and of course, the forests themselves. To achieve this, though, we have to take a different approach to economics and planning, and the kinds of dialogue that happen between stakeholders. It will require collaboration across sectors of a kind that is at the moment rarely seen. Fostering such interaction is, I know, one of the aims of your conference, and as far as I can see, it is an absolutely essential prerequisite for progress. And progress is being made. I have been particularly heartened by the dramatic reductions in deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon and the impressive commitments made in Indonesia, Guyana, Ethiopia, and a host of other countries. However, the pressures on tropical forests remain acute. Much more needs to be done to ensure that adequate provision is made, both for public sector support and by the private sector, how they look at their supply chains, for instance, and critically, the way in which the banking and insurance sectors support those companies that have an impact on forests, directly or indirectly. And, ladies and gentlemen, I hardly need remind you that it is vital that all this takes place as soon as possible. It is, of course, encouraging that many initiatives and partnerships are already operating between governments, civil society, and the private sector. The Green Wall of Africa, for example, or the way in which member companies of the Consumer Goods Forum have teamed up with the United States government, or the government of China's notable achievements in reforestation, as well as the work on certification and best practice in sustainable forest management undertaken by many of the companies present today. Now, I can only trust and pray that this conference will result in many more such alliances. So may I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by expressing my fervent wish, and how many times and in how many messages over so many years have I expressed such an ardent hope, that together we may yet address the pressing and interlocking challenges of climate change, human development, food security, and biodiversity conservation, whilst there is still just time. The coming 3 years, with a deadline of 2015, represent an astonishingly significant opportunity for this to happen. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the next 3 years represents a unique window of opportunity that will close for good if we do not seize it. I have to confess that the nearer I get to grandfatherhood, not many months from now, the more urgently I feel that we owe it to our children and grandchildren to recognize how little time there is left to do all that we can to foster the kind of world that puts crucial natural systems, such as our forests, at the heart of what we value most. Only by drawing an income in the form of nature's services from this natural capital can we hope to ensure a genuinely sustainable future.